Good morning, everyone. This is Catrina Peters with the Nevada Department of Agriculture. We're going to go ahead and get started with this morning's webinar. This is webinar number 2 in our wellness webinar series. And today we're going to be talking about the School Wellness Policy Best Practices Manual. Okay, so this morning we're going to go over briefly where you can find the NDA School Wellness Policy resources. We're going to jump in and orient you to the NDA School Wellness Policy Best Practices Manual. And as we go through the different sections of the manual, we're going to start by talking about what the requirement is in some pretty basic language. And then we're going to step into what resources are available to help meet that particular requirement. That's how we have organized the layout of the Best Practices Manual, and we hope that this will be an excellent resource for folks as you implement the revised school wellness policy. We'll talk really briefly about some other school wellness initiatives. I want to make sure everyone's aware of those. And then we'll also have time for some questions. The webinar this morning is being recorded, and we'll stop the recording when we start the question and answer session. So hopefully everyone has been well acquainted with our school wellness webpage, but in the event you're not, we've taken a screenshot here to show you what that wellness policy page looks like. This is where you can find a variety of resources. We've posted a PDF of the policy itself. We've posted a PDF of the Best Practices Manual, which you can see here at that second link, and that's what we're going to be talking about a little more in depth today. We also have a sample wellness policy for RCCIs, and I see quite a few RCCIs have joined us today, so that's great. We also have a link to where school districts have posted their wellness policy, and we'll be updating those as school districts revise their policy. We also have a link to our e-learning school wellness module, and that is a web-based module that you can do at your own pace. It's through the e-learning system. Some of you may have already accessed some resources on there. But this is our general first page for all wellness policy resources. We've also provided the URL on the screen today so that you'll have that to access later. We're also archiving our webinar series, and you can find those at our YouTube page, and we'll provide that URL at the end today. We also are posting all of our slides to our SlideShare account. We've gone away from emailing them out because the file size is typically so large with pictures. So you can go ahead and pull our presentations off that SlideShare account, and we'll send the link to that out as well, so you can access those resources if you want to use this particular slide deck. So when you click on that Best Practices Manual link that we showed in the previous slide, that's going to pull up the PDF of the Best Practices Manual, and we've shown you a screenshot of what that front page looks like. To talk briefly about why we created a Best Practices Manual. When the policy was initially developed, we brought together a group of stakeholders to develop that policy, and I see quite a few of our stakeholder members are with us today, which is really exciting. During that process, a need was identified to have a best practices manual. So as topics like recess before lunch and creating goals came up, there was strong feelings from the group that we needed to also provide districts with resources to help accomplish those things. And we decided that we would bring those all together in one best practices manual. It was really a collaborative effort, and we want to thank everybody that contributed. We had a whole host of resources shared from a variety of different folks, and we really appreciate all the help we had in pulling information together for this manual. We also really wanted to provide a central resource to aid in the implementation of the Nevada School Wellness Policy. So there's a whole host of resources out there, and we wanted to provide folks with sort of a one-stop shop that they could come to help implement this new wellness policy. Okay, let's jump into the manual. Our first section focuses on advisory group formation. So to talk really briefly about the basic requirement, the wellness policy dictates that school districts must allow the opportunity for a representative of each of the following groups to participate in wellness policy development, implementation, and periodic review. And this includes parents, students, representatives of school food service, PE teachers, school health professionals, school administrators, the general public, just a really wide variety of representation from different groups. This requirement doesn't dictate that you have to have a member from each group we listed here. So the requirement is that you're allowing the opportunity, but we want to make sure folks understand that we aren't mandating you have a member from each group we listed here. The requirement is that that group would meet at least 2 times a year. Okay, so to talk about some resources we've provided to help get this requirement in place. So in the section 1 of our best practices manual, we have information and links on building a group. We have some resources to help you reach out to the community and help solicit those advisory group members. And then we also have some resources you can utilize to help maintain a cohesive and successful group. And we provided some information and then also some links where you can access some toolkits and guidance documents for these particular activities of bringing a group together. We also provided a sample letter of invitation. So there's some stock language that you can use to send out a letter to your community to help try to solicit that involvement. Okay, let's move on to section 2, and that's local school wellness policy goals. So the requirement is that each district must select and measure at least one goal from each of the following categories. So that's nutrition, education, and promotion, physical activity, and then sort of a catch-all of other school-based activities. And in this particular for this particular requirement, you have to have at least one goal from each of those 3 categories. You can have as many goals as you want. So that group may decide to do 2 goals from each of those sections, but it can't be less than 1 goal. So to talk about resources, and in this particular section, it's one of our longest sections. We provided a ton of resources, and we sort of structured those in first providing some sample goals so that folks would have an idea of what a goal would look like and some stock dialogue that you could pull from, some further information on that goal, and then a list of resources that you can utilize to help achieve that goal. So we're sort of walking you through the whole process. The first piece would be to select a goal, to have some context on why that is a good goal and what that goal would involve, and then some resources you can utilize to go out and be successful in achieving that goal. And we organize them so that there's one section for each type of goal. So first, we have a section for nutrition, promotion, and education. Then we have a section that's specific to physical activity. And following that, we have a section specific to that catch-all of other school-based activities. After that, we also have a sample school action plan to help achieve goals. And this was a resource that was provided by Alliance for Healthier Generation. And it can help sort of get a framework around identifying a goal, who would work on that goal, and what steps to take to help achieve that goal. So that action plan can help get you from that starting point to completion. Okay, moving on to section 3, meal consumption. So the requirement here is pretty straightforward. There's a minimum time requirement of 15 minutes for students to be able to consume breakfast, 20 minutes for students to consume lunch. And we want to make sure that folks understand that this is intended to provide dedicated time for students to consume that meal, but we aren't requiring that all students have to remain seated for that entire 20 minutes for lunch or 15 minutes for breakfast. So really the take-home here is that amount of time needs to be available for students to consume the meal. So that's the amount of time they have after they've acquired that meal, and that's 20 minutes for lunch for them to consume it. All right, so moving on to some resources we have for meal consumption. So we have information on why adequate time to consume meals is important. And then we also have some information on recess before lunch. So recess before lunch is a district level decision. It was mandatory at the elementary level in the previous policy, and our stakeholder group came to consensus on leaving that to be a district level decision. But we've provided additional information on recess before lunch and how it can help folks that have seen it be really successful in getting students to consume a meal. And also kind of increase that calorie intake to fuel them through the day. We also have some resources to help with recess before lunch implementation. So some information on kind of why it's important, and then some resources on how to get it into place. Okay, our next section is physical activity. So the requirement is that schools must provide the opportunity for moderate to vigorous physical activity for at least 30 minutes each regular school day. To talk about the resources we've provided, we have a list of examples of ways to integrate physical activity into the school day, and this can include things like activity breaks in the classroom or incorporating physical activity into curriculum. We have some resources, some links you can click on for further information on how to incorporate physical activity into throughout the school day. And we also have some guidelines for physical activity. If you're curious on sort of some curriculum standards and some guidelines on physical activity, there's links where you can access that information. Section 5 is about food sold or provided on the school campus. So to talk about the requirements, there's nutritional requirements for all foods sold or given away on the school campus during the school day, and that's defined as midnight through 30 minutes after the end of the school day. This includes all foods sold as fundraisers, and we aren't going to go into the nutritional requirements today. We talked a little bit about those on the previous webinar, and you can access that information within the policy document itself. There's also a requirement that school districts establish a policy that addresses special occasions or holidays, and that could allow some special occasions and holidays that allow foods that exceed the established nutrition parameters. School districts also need to address the frequency of special occasions, which allow foods that exceed the established nutrition parameters. And regular school activities like club meetings or assemblies wouldn't meet this criteria. Okay, so to talk about resources, we have posted a list of foods that meet the regulations. We've got our Smart Snacks approved list, and that's up on the website. We also, in this resource document, provide product calculators for foods that are not on the list. So these are resources that other groups have developed where you can plug in some basic information to know whether or not a product meets the criteria. We do want to put a caution on this in that online product calculators could potentially give you a green light on some products that are allowable nationally, but that our Nevada standards don't allow. So our Nevada school wellness policy doesn't allow carbonated beverages of any kind at any grade level, and that's a requirement that's more restrictive than the national regulations. We also provide resources for special occasions and celebrations. So we have a sample letter to request healthy items, and that's a resource that districts, school administrators, or even teachers could utilize to send a note home to parents to request healthy items be brought into the classroom for celebrations. It also provides a list of ideas for healthy food treats or non-food items that can be used at celebrations. Okay, next we'll switch gears a little bit and talk about fundraising. So the requirement, and we talked about this 2 slides ago, is that all food items sold or given away to students on campus during the school day have to meet nutrition standards, and there are no exceptions to that. This doesn't apply to foods that are sold with the intention of being consumed outside of the regular school day. And for resources to help implement this, we provided a list of ideas for non-food fundraisers. We also have links to further resources for healthy fundraisers. And we've seen a fantastic increase in folks getting really creative with school fundraisers that fall within these requirements. So I've seen farm stands where they're selling school garden produce. We've seen a lot of physical activity like walkathons or jogathons. We've also seen things like game nights or school carnivals being utilized to raise funds but still offer physical activity or healthy food items for sale. So we want to make sure folks understand that we aren't saying food can't be sold as a fundraiser, but that food that's sold as a fundraiser, if it's food that's intended to be consumed or is able to be consumed within the school day, has to meet certain nutritional requirements. Okay, I've combined section 7 and 8, and that's incentives and rewards and marketing. So the requirement is that school districts must decide whether or not they're going to use food as a reward and put that in their revised policy. If they do decide to allow food as a reward, it's required to be in alignment with Smart Snacks guidelines. So that food's going to have to meet those nutritional requirements. To think about marketing, school districts must allow for marketing of only foods and beverages that can be sold on school campus during the school day. So only foods that meet those nutritional requirements are allowed to be marketed on the school campus. So some resources we have to support implementation of this particular requirement. We have examples of non-food rewards, and those are things like stickers, extra recess time, eat lunch with a teacher or principal. We also have examples of some marketing ideas, and I think this really provides a great opportunity to publicize those healthy food options. We also have links to other outside resources that can help with non-food rewards and incentives. Okay, Section 9. That's incentives or penalties for violation of local school wellness policy. And we really kind of want to highlight the positive here and talk about some incentives that districts and schools can utilize to recognize schools that are doing an excellent job and really support schools that are doing a fantastic job implementing the wellness policy. So some of those ideas are special recognition for schools that excel, and that could be a certificate, a monetary award, or something like a school-wide celebration, so a field day or an assembly to really celebrate that achievement and celebrate excelling in school wellness. Okay, we also wanted to share some information on other wellness initiatives. So while schools are putting energy and resources into revising that wellness policy and getting that advisory group together, there's some other wellness initiatives that could be conducted to really complement current activities. So USDA has a Healthier U.S. Schools Challenge, and we provide the link where you can access more information in the Best Practices Manual. Fuel Up to Play 60 is a program offered through the Dairy Council. The Presidential Youth Fitness is a program that we also have provided a link to, and all three of these programs have funding opportunities available. So that could be a means of getting that monetary award to that school that's really excelling in school wellness. Action for Healthy Kids and Alliance for Healthier Generation also have programs that can get schools extra recognition for those wellness efforts. We want to make sure everybody knows that we are archiving all of our webinars. So if you want to share this with folks later, or if you aren't able to make every webinar in this series, you can hop on our YouTube account and access those webinars later. All right, with that, I will open it up to any questions anyone may have. And to ask a question, we ask that you type that question into the question box in the GoToWebinar dashboard.